So as I was saying, the main word here is synchronicities. As I've heard all of you speak now today, I can only get so excited. It's how I felt about the SelectUSA event. For example, I thought a lot of the things were random, but I've stopped believing in that. So like Kimberly mentioned the aquaculture part, and just a few a month ago, I was speaking with I think she's a PhD in marine biology here in Romania. She is absolutely amazing, and we're trying to find segments on which to work together or to catalyze this here in this part of the world. So maybe we can take a conversation forward again, how Andrew catalyzes this. So again, thank you for having me today. I was going to mention the SelectUSA event, which for me was the first time at the investment summit.
Well, Thea, before you get into that, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, I was going to segue into this because in the past 6 years, I've been working with startups in the agri-tech, biotech, climate tech, green tech, everything oriented toward the environment, the soil, the food. And I've been supporting with revenue operations, guiding startup founders through their processes, building their teams, and finding the right markets for their products, and supporting them with talks with messaging and relating to farmers. Because in 2016, I began working in a agrochemical inputs company. It's part of Sumitomo Corporation, and that's where I learned the entire supply distribution chain creation of an active ingredient, all the way from certification to trials, distribution, application, marketing, every little sliver of business development, financial teams, and including plant phytopathology. So it was entirely fascinating for me to learn all of that, because I had done my master's thesis on job rotation in Japanese culture. So that's where it stemmed. And I was delighted to apply that in an actual Japanese company. So I went in each department for about 3 months, and I learned everything there was to learn about that environment. And I decided I want to stay in agriculture. I love this because I grew up on a farm here in Romania. So it was glorious for me to make those connections with plants, with the environment that I grew up in, with livestock and all that rural area, and like living in the place where everything started in agriculture. So when I got to see that level of regulation and distribution and sales, the commercial part, of course, and all the players that were involved in this ecosystem, I thought that was entirely fascinating. And on a personal level, I'm a very curious person. I love to explore avenues, possibilities, and previously unexplored relationships or combinations of partnerships. So I realized I want to apply what I'm curious about in technology in agriculture, while at the same time being an economist. So it's an interesting combination. So I've worked with startup founders throughout the world, but focusing on Europe, the United States, and a little bit on Asia. And this year, I made the bold move of starting my own startup that's focusing on exactly what Andrew mentioned earlier. We targeted for reforestation of wildfire-affected areas. And it's a product, I have it here with me actually, for the purpose of it's like a show and tell. I love it so much. It's we made a little seed pod here. This is like the plastic version, because I showed it to everybody while I was in Washington last week. So this is the seed pod that's going to be printed with biological material with a 3D printer. And it's going to include this very unique recipe of macronutrients, of hydrogel and hydrogels, and a few biostimulants that are aimed at regenerating and restoring the natural soil microbiome once it's applied and just add water, so to speak. So it's this is the product that I took to SelectUSA. The main goal was for us to show people that we already have a product that is ready to be deployed in those affected areas, because we identified this problem, and also with pairing with Andrew, because we went a couple of years ago, I think, due to our mutual passion and curiosity for all things agtech and cybersecurity, and of course the soil. So it felt like a natural evolution of coming together in such an event and seeing the potential of this product and reaching its potential, actually getting closer to that.
Well, before we get ahead of ourselves, step one, have you ever been to DC before? Was this your first time, or have you?
This was my all-time first time for me, across the Atlantic. So in any context. So I grew up with American television, but I was extremely excited. I stayed there for a week. The event was 4 days, but jam-packed with a lot of visits. And I really loved being in that environment. I felt super safe in DC. Everything was so structured and organized and clear, and the air was surprisingly clean. I mean, coming from Bucharest, Keith, you came to Bucharest. I'm not sure if you can make a comparison, though. When I got there, I felt like, oh my God, the air is so clear here, and with all this traffic, it's still beautiful and green, and there were trees everywhere, and I was so happy about that. And really made the beginning of the event even better, having that frame to start with.
Did you have any free time to wander around the city between all your meetings?
Very little, but I gave up a little bit of sleep so I can go and rush through the city and absorb it. And as I said at the beginning, I don't think anything is random. I seemingly got to the botanical garden on my way to the event, and they had the agriculture expo there. I'm not sure if that happens all the time there. I could not believe my eyes. So they had an entire exhibit of showing various areas of agriculture and farming. They had tools, like traditional kitchens. They had the corn stages of development and different varieties of corn, and microscopes and type of soils that you could look at. And there were kids there who were looking through the soil, and they weren't really thinking what they were looking at. And I started speaking to this little girl who was looking in the microscope, and she said she at one point she said, it's so beautiful. I said, these are, I started telling her about where she can interact with those types of soil, even though I'm not a specialist. Just like this is where you get this is what you see next to the beach. This is what you see where you see it next to, I don't know, outside of the city. I don't know. There were these types of soils which I could name right off the bat, and she was, the smile I got was, it was so beautiful. And we were both looking at the microscope at the same samples of soil, and it was just a very wholesome moment. My heart was so fluttering to be there. Like, there was corn everywhere, and there were these, I'm not sure if anybody here has ever been to the Canary Islands, And the Canary Islands are volcanic islands, and there they grow a lot of grapevine, and they make wine, of course. And in one of the islands called Lanzarote, they're growing vineyards in volcanic soil, which is black, and they have these kind of little craters in which they have the grapevines. And there was an aerial shot of those grapevines, and it was like, oh my God, I was there. It was so glorious because I lived in the Canaries for a few years, and it was great to recognize that pattern of adaptive agriculture.
So when you went over there, not to get ahead of ourselves, but the Romanian government asked you to come over there and represent ag tech and the climate tech portion of here. Were there other Romanian companies that went? Were there other people that went over there with you? Were you paired up with anyone when you came to the US?
Well, since I interacted with the SelectUSA delegation, they were in Lisbon at Web Summit in 2022. And they were there specifically for the reason to get startups in their programs, and they were showcasing their Select Global Women in Tech mentorship, which was amazing. And of course, it instantly drew me to the idea of mentorship, of partnership, of support you would get regardless of the market that you're entering. And I think this is the one reason. It's kind of a lot to do with a Scion, that when you infuse a seed, it should have the right nutrients. And this is how I see the mentorship. This is how I see partnership in any market. I went there, I applied in, I think it was February or March this year, out of the connection that I initially had since Lisbon. And then I got to speak with the rest of the Romanian delegation here, because they had been there last year, and just showing each other what we plan to do together, and what the steps there would be once we would get there. You asked me about DC. Once we got there, we had a group of the Romanian delegation, and I was the only startup to pitch during those pitching sessions. It's the startup ecosystem, while it's not the core of SelectUSA, from what I've noticed, it is a growing segment, and I really loved the fact that they encouraged, of course, women and young entrepreneurs to pitch at these sessions. And per category, we were in the clean tech category, where there were companies focusing on, for example, on the biotech, on robotics, on data. They were all put into the clean tech category, given the segment and their chosen markets. So it was it was impressive that way. The Romanian delegation did have a few other companies there, and I think in terms of startups, there were like 3 of us, and I was the only one in the Select Global Women in Tech and the pitching sessions, which was like entirely exciting for me. Just a very, very young startup with a very bold idea and a bold leap to make. It was quite impressive. So just being like the distance, the context, there were a lot of government officials there, and the overall mission of the company being reforestation of these areas. And it was quite an interesting aspect when I started speaking about the problem. It began, I could see on people's faces, like their faces opened up, like, oh, this is very interesting. This is happening. We have to look at this. And there was a person there that came and said, we need to plant like 1.5 billion trees per year. Let's do this.
All right. Well, I'll let you get back. I've got a few other questions here, but I'll let you get back to your presentation.
Oh, please. I mean, I much more prefer the idea of interacting, and the pitching session there, unlike what I'd normally be used to, like for example, FIRA, the robotics conference. I know that they have 8 minutes there to present. When you present a robotics solution for anything, you kind of need more technical details. So presenting a robotics solution for reforestation in the context of a tech business summit, tech investment summit, 4 minutes is very bold. So yeah, we focused on the I want to say burning need to address this. It's kind of a dark joke if I say that.
Well, before we get to the technical pieces there, logistically, one of the things when we discuss conferences, we talk about the food, we talk about the, the name tags, the, kind of the flow of it, the networking that happens as opposed to too much content. So what were sort of your, just from an event itself, not necessarily what the topic was, what did you think about it? I mean, was it easy to find your way around, etc.? What were your impressions?
Well, since the event took place at the Gaylord International Harbor, everything was in one place. Every day you had events and side events in the same areas. It was really clear where you had to go, and there were people there to help you every step along the way. That's what I loved enormously. You could easily spot them, and they would always help you. I love that. Like, no matter who you stopped to ask, they would help you in a heartbeat, or just, oh, well, I'll take you there. Don't worry about it. I love that. Okay. The level of support that I felt throughout this event, especially from the organization team, for me, that was great. I mean, I really felt supported. And everything was seamless for the technical part, like uploading the pitch decks, and everything was set before I got there. Just had to make sure everything was in line, and of course everything was. And like orientation wise, we had maps of the place. There was an app for that, and there were points throughout the event where you could ask people. So I've always been a fan of asking for help, which is great because they're really, really helpful that way. So everything went great from the beginning, even registration. They set you up from the beginning with the QR code, and just go there to the registration desk, scan your code, show an ID, and there you have it. It was, I love that.
Well, I mean, if any other entrepreneurs are listening to this from other parts of the world, it sounds like SelectUSA is something they want to pay attention to.
I mean, there are people there and organizations. Before we went there, we said, okay, what would the goals be? So the pitching is, I realized that pitching in this event, since from what I noticed, the startup segment was an sort of an added bonus for the whole event. And it was, I believe that in the future, it's going to be even more focused on it. There will be even more, much better organized in a way that, like, a clearer path and a clear segmentation. And for this edition, I think it was overall a good idea to be there as a startup. For me, it gave me a sense of the extent of such an event and how deep the roots can go. There were government organizations there, like the United States Department of Agriculture, the Forest Service, the Census, is it national census? And they had representatives from each of those segments, and it was great to liaise with them that way directly, because it's much more amazing to have like a live discussion with somebody before even, and instead of being a name on an app or a name on a Zoom call or in an email. So like it felt much warmer this way and impactful, because people could actually grasp the founders' enthusiasm and dedication to the mission that they had. So
Well,
that's how I.
all that is spectacular. I mean, I guess the real thing is kind of what you just mentioned, the outcomes. Focusing on what tangible thing can you bring back for your company, whether it's investment, whether it's soft landing, and so forth. And I know this only happened recently, so you probably haven't had a whole lot of time to do all your follow-ups yet. But what do
Yeah.
you? Yeah, and maybe you'll get to that in your presentation. But I am curious about the tangible outcomes from the event.
Well, for us, it was important to see what state is. We had previously done our homework in terms of which states are mostly affected by wildfires and that are active in the area of reforestation and recovery. So not just preventing or approaching wildfires as they unravel, but also the post incident. And I I'm the kind of person who really digs deep into research and market data. And I don't think that is something that is very easily found, to see how EODs are representatives of those states, EDO, sorry, are approaching these and are looking at those aspects when you don't have a previously built rapport. So having been there in person to speak with representatives from the states we were prioritizing, for me it was invaluable, because I got to ask questions about the area that I'm targeting, about the market, the ground situation of those areas, because everybody in their respective state, they're really connected to what's going on, and beyond a professional level, they're definitely going to be connected to it on a personal level, because their home state is burning. So they had a personal stake in it. So that I think is one of the most important, as well as I said, beyond a business card, because there was a great app for scheduling networking meetings and throughout the event. And it's a great support, though. When there was this option available to participate in the event online. Of course, you wouldn't be able to pitch, you wouldn't be able to be there and speak with people. You would just have access to the on some of the online sessions, to the networking part. Though being there and actually having those synchronicities, because this was the one thing that I started with, meeting people in some queue or on the hallway in waiting for a meeting. Those are the kind of things that I believe were extremely important, especially from my experience there, because I was waiting to have meetings with certain people, and then we met outside, like between the stands, like there in the exhibit hall, and it was like amazing that way. Like, hey, oh, I know you, or like, oh, and then we just sparked conversations that way. I think this is one of the most beautiful things that I appreciated after the pandemic, that you could actually have these serendipitous conversations with people there. And I got recommendations for farmers in the United States from resting my bag on a table where somebody else was speaking, and noticing my badge where it said Romania, and oh, I think I was there a few years ago, and it's like, you know, these kind of conversations sparked on the spot. So I got to tell them like a few seconds about one of the segments of our solution for pruning fruit trees. And, oh yeah, I know somebody who has an apple orchard. Super, send them my way. So that's one of the most amazing things that I got from the conference. And of course, the organization team who was supporting throughout the way, not just like on the ground, but through emails. They were really responsive, connecting and guiding, and especially the Select Global Women in Tech segment, mentoring one-on-one with national mentors. That was great. I could talk about the whole synchronicity thing for a very long time, because it's something that I noticed that it kept happening in the speech, after the speech of Undersecretary Marissa Lago. We had a conversation with the organizers, and some of the mentors jumped in, and we just formed like a very beautiful on topic conversation. And some of us actually went together to the residence of the ambassador. It just, every piece fell in its place, and I love that. I couldn't, if I had arranged it to be this way, I don't think I could have done such an amazing job as the universe did.
Outstanding. All right. So pruning, what is this?
So this is the pitch deck that we had there. We are now we segued a little bit toward prune tech, because we realized it's focusing on layers.
So wait a minute. Wait, this is the pitch deck you had there. You had 4 minutes to pitch. Is that 27 slides? So what is that, like about 4 seconds a slide?
Yeah, it was. It might be a bit longer. My
8 seconds.
Stefan downloaded this one for me for today. So yes, it was a very short time. I noticed that the startups there also, like, they had a bit of an issue fitting their pitch into 4 minutes, regardless of their specific niche. So what I believe, because I drew a lot of very juicy feedback from this, from my own mind and experience, and because I had to film myself somehow. I need the feedback. We focused a lot on the solution, on the problem. And because, okay, so I'm going to be presenting you this now, but at the same time, and if it's okay with you, Andrew, let me know how you feel about this. I want to talk about the takeaways that I got while
Oh, absolutely.
So as presenting this, pruning is focusing its entire activity on mostly trees, and aiding planting and supporting the entire tree system with the help of robotics and artificial intelligence. We aim to launch these seed pods that I presented earlier into areas that have been affected by wildfires. And since we identified that this is a problem throughout the United States, where a lot of acreage, like 4 million acres of forest, desperately need reforestation and treatment. I presented here some data that I got from very interesting sites, which I can share with you after this, that have close to real-time data of the current wildfire situations. And I wanted to kind of connect to people there that the data that I'm presenting is really close to home. So this is not data from 2 years ago, from last year. This is data from last month. So I spoke about this because everybody knows that it's a dire situation. It's something that's urgent. And I wanted to connect with people knowing that this is not just urgent, but it's really close to home. And one of the things that I learned after this pitch and throughout the event was more on the structure of how the United States government is approaching these actions in specific states and specific areas, based on their resources, based on how the organizations are structured there. And it was a really jam-packed full of lessons there. So we were offering the Scion seed pods as our solution for bioprinted seed pods to use to replant in those wildfire affected areas. Why? Because these pods are going to stimulate the soil and the soil microbiome in those areas, since the soil had been depleted by its natural nutrients. And we focused this product in this moment because now is the best time to start, because it's something that you don't think, yeah, we're going to work on this and start doing it in a few years, or no, we're just going to start doing it now. We're going to start speaking with national authorities, with communities, with corporations who are focusing their efforts on lowering their carbon footprint, offsetting their carbon emissions. And this is a strategy that's going to start today, so that it starts creating ripples of impact throughout the years, because everybody knows that trees take a long time to grow. So the best time to start is now. We were focusing this for due to the fact that the United States Forest Service has a very lofty goal of 1.4 billion trees to be planted per year until 2030 to start compensating for the losses and regulating the leveling the playing field, so to speak. So we targeted the United States Department of Agriculture for our seed pods. We are focusing on timber companies and corporations who want to actually move from talking about ESG to actually doing something about it. So this is why we chose to start with the Scion seed pod, which is based on the American football shape.
Well, quick question: where does the name come from?
Well, Scion is the very young sorry, I'm having a bit of a gap here. So it's not from the car. I know there's a Toyota car. It comes from the first sprout of a seed. So it's since it's going to include native seeds, so that whenever we deploy these, we make sure that whatever its contents, seed content is, it will perpetuate the existing species. We're going to make it in different sizes, and it's going to actually be able to encapsulate an actual plant, depending on the area and the soil. We were thinking of adapting each seed pod, each batch of seed pods to the specific seed and to the specific area that we're going to target. And they're going to map with the help of drones to see all the affected areas and to which degree they have been affected. And we're going to launch them using our containers. They're going to be unmanned ground vehicles, which are going to deploy the Scion seed launcher, and the drones that are going to map the area. So this is going to be autonomously deployed in the field to clean the areas, to prepare them, and to launch the seed pods in the area. We targeted these areas specifically because of lack of conflict of interest, for example, areas that have not been overtaken by, I don't know, real estate projects or so on, for urban areas. For the main goal was the wildfire affected areas post-burn. The goal was to collaborate with nurseries. They're going to spread our cyan seed pods, and they're going to use them from seeding all the way to planting those in their own distribution networks and in the ground directly. So the seed pod is going to be with them from the moment they take it from us all the way to planting it. We actually have our product roadmap here. We are having the cyan seed pods, which are ready to be deployed after being 3D printed as of next week, for example. They are ready to be shipped when we have a partner who wants to test them in their specific areas. And using our proprietary formula, I think it's one of the key aspects is going to help not just easing the business, but also making it really fast to help the seed catch on faster. The goal is to have our tailored robotic unmanned ground vehicles, and we are going to do this entirely localized in the United States. All that we're going to need is the recipe for the cyan seed pods, and we already have the blueprint for what needs to happen on the ground there. I know I've definitely went over 4 minutes, though. We are having some traction so far, which is great because we've spoken to farmers and landowners since our incorporation in January, and we're in the process of signing 3 LOIs. We're in talks to enter into native Indian forest areas. From our research, we noticed that a lot of the forest areas are owned either by the government or by native by reservations, and this is one avenue that we thought we could approach, as well as timber companies. So when you have to cut the trees in a specific area, regardless of the reason, you can actually complement that with a strategy to plant more trees, of course. So that is what we the way we were approaching this. We were not asking for money there because I think this segment that we targeted was very not personal, but impactful. So asking for partnerships and collaborations with universities, for example, with land stewards, authorities there, speaking with the United States Department of Agriculture Forest Service, and they were great, a great resource. Also with the California State Department, they were absolutely helpful in giving us the resources to come into contact with universities, for example, with whom we can start a partnership. Oh, it's doubled. Something's off. Sorry. Hello, we are experiencing some technical difficulties. Okay, so the entire concept is based on sustainability. This has been on everybody's minds in the past year, and everybody has been speaking about sustainability. But I want us to have a physical product that's focusing on actual sustainability, not just through its design, but through the actions that it's actually complementing farmers, landowners, and governments take. For example, like cleaning trails from trees and debris and so on. We want it to be entirely electrical and support the ecosystem. Like, we're not going to have like diesel powered stuff there in the middle of the forest. I'm not sure how it is in the United States on the ground, but in Romania they just come with those kind of huge generators that emit like a shit ton of smoke, and it's very it's just bad. What are you trying to help here in the forest? What is going on here, little one? There you go. Of course, we're complementing the sustainability development goals, which are these are like straight up targeted 100% to restore and promote sustainability. And this is our team. It's myself, the co-founder and CEO, and my 20 years this month colleague Aline. We were in high school together, and he's an engineer and in robotics and bioprinting, and he has an MBA from Italy. And myself, I've been in agriculture for 7 years, 8 years. Yeah, 8 years, and I'm entirely excited about it. This is 27, no, it's like 27 pages. Yeah, I realized during the event that people need to know the problem really fast and how we're actually addressing that. And knowing from all the discussions, I believe that the two key aspects out of this have been the distribution system and how this is going to make money for people involved, the businesses involved, because we all know that it's going to have an impact. So this is what we're banking on. That's it.
All right. Well, there's a healthy round of applause there for you. I'm not going to ask any questions. I know Cassandra's probably got about a dozen there too. So I will open up the floor and let folks ask questions as they will.
Yeah, that was it was quite interesting to digest. It's I welcome feed forward, of course, to make this more digestible, because it's a roadmap for a complex product that is easily deployable, but it involves a lot of moving parts, literally and figuratively. So the best way to put this onto the market step by step is welcome.
I do have a couple of questions. First thing was just like a recent memory. I was visiting my uncle who lives close to Yellowstone, and we got to do one of those really cool over the snow van tours. And there's so many relatively new pine trees throughout the entire park. And he was giving the history of like the huge 1988 forest fire that took out like 30% of the forest. And I'm from Arizona, so obviously, you know, very familiar with this growing challenge. I guess two questions. One is, when you look at the American market, in terms of your conversations, it's like, where are the regions who are most interested in buying your product? Like, is it more kind of like West Coast, or are you, because I see the nurseries are kind of focused in that area, but you're kind of spread across. You've got a couple of potential nurseries elsewhere in the country. And then kind of the second question is around, it's really cool in thinking through like the size of the pod, like to potentially be with I'm guessing like an airplane, being able to deliver not just seeds but small kind of tree saplings.
Yeah.
And curious where you've been able to deploy that and kind of the success of that, because as you know better than I, it's like the trees take a long time to grow, and so if you can get kind of a head start of what gets added to different regions, it's all the better.
Yeah, we were focusing on areas like Washington State, Oregon, California, of course, because it's affected by this, Arizona, and also Texas, Montana, North Dakota, Nevada. So these are states that we were focusing on due to the actual need. What's going on here? So far in the United States, we've yet to deploy these because this was one of the reasons for this event, to start discussions about partnerships, how we can do this to tailor it to native seeds, and tailor the recipe per each species, so we can start deploying it as soon as possible. So far, we've done this in Romania, in demo lots here. We are having the LOIs getting in the process of getting ready to do more of this, and as well as implement the pruning solution, which also involves is included in the reforestation product, because it's going to start aiding in cleaning those affected areas. So one of the entry points is for these nurseries to have to even create the scions. We want to license them so that they can produce their own scions in-house and just start implementing them as soon as possible, so they can, as you said, like have their seeds start growing in these pods. There are a lot of applicabilities, potential applicabilities for this product, because one of them is to have a ID in there in this kind of part in the product, so we can monitor parts of the process. It's something that we're looking for to kind of take on the stewardship of the land. So basically, sort of a robotic forest stewardship, because we want to be part of the environment to, for example, if we were to start in that environment right now, we would analyze the soil, we would prepare the regions, we would plant the seed pods and monitor them throughout the process. I know that here in Romania, they have a lot of tree planting initiatives, though these are very limited and they're very small, and that you do that with a little shovel, and so you can involve kids and so on. Though if we intend to actually support the areas that have been affected, then we have to use it on a larger scale, and this is where I believe we can become a partner for those organizations who have already, some of them have already started doing this, and some of them are actually thinking of ways in which to do this. So this is a long-term partnership for stimulating the ecosystem in those areas. So the product and the company grows as the forest develops, from seed to all the way to the actual forest and the canopy.
I don't want to jump ahead of things here, but are there certain states that have expressed a strong desire to have you get a toehold in their area?
We spoke with California, Georgia, and Montana, and Oregon. So out of the states that we were targeting that have noticed that have the biggest need for this, 4 of those states have said, okay, let's take this conversation forward and see what can be done on this, especially Montana. And Oregon, they have been quite excited at the sound of this product. And of course, once we have a deeper conversation, not just like in the middle of the exhibit hall, to go through how the product is functioning, what's the purpose of it, and how it's going to be distributed, and the partnerships that are going to help us get there, I think that's going to be much more clarifying.
Good. I'm going to share something really quickly here. Again, I'm a junkie of the wildfires. This is the latest wildfire map for the U.S. for this month. So anywhere that's red, you can expect to have devastating wildfires and forest fires, and it looks like there's a lot of red over urban areas too. So we can anticipate that these will be areas of high burn. The East Coast is lit up right now. A lot of, when you see red on the map, a lot of it's not due to necessarily the heat and the air conditions. A lot of it's due to the rain that came before the heat and air conditions that spurn the vegetative growth that then dies back or desiccates and becomes very fire friendly. So the timeliness of this can't be overstated. This is, this is critical for the United States right now. And anyway, so it's my deep dark fascination right now is the fire weather piece of things.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Andrew, I completely resonate with that. It's absolutely like a wormhole.
So the last question I have for you here is, now that you've been over here, you've gone to SelectUSA, you've got this wonderful company, you're providing a solution that we need today across the planet. What is it that the audience can do for you?
I think the most impactful step is to have feedback on how and what we can do right now to make the most viable, the next viable step toward in our roadmap. This is something that I think is very important, because sometimes you can't see the color of the roof from inside the house, which is most of the time. So this would really help. And of course, we're looking for organizations who are land stewards who are focusing on these to and associations. Like, for example, we were thinking about the hot shots in Arizona. Somebody recently spoke about that with me, and collaborations, communication with organizations who are very much aware that these are dire issues that need to be addressed.
Again, I'm sorry, go ahead, Cassandra.
Yeah, I had one question, and this, I don't have this background in this might be a silly question, but given your technology with its ability to prune once the seeds are actually planted, have you thought at all about, I'm not sure what that looks like. I imagine the pruning has to be where the tree's not huge, but in thinking about that map that Andrew shared and where you just have vegetation that's died, is there also a way for what you offer to be a little bit nimble in the sense of deploying just the pruning robotic technology in a way to try to mitigate what would likely be like a really bad forest fire, to be able to deploy the technology in a way that can help get ahead of this a little bit, so we don't lose all of the existing trees that already exist in that region?
Can you say that last part again, please? To what?
The question is, thinking about your pruning technology, have you thought about offering that as like a separate from the deployment of seeds, like thinking about regions that could use that to get ahead of the forest fire season?
Yes, we have. It's one of the main goals. So the Scion was the fastest way to do this, to help support the soil, and the technology is going to be entirely complementary to clear those areas, to do any kind of manual, the labor that would otherwise be manual. So like clearing the trails or pruning the trees, for example. We are also evaluating this on the fruit tree pruning with drones. So we're looking at this in a very holistic way to see what's the highest impact that we can deploy in the shortest time frame possible. So I'm really getting that feedback. Thank you so much with thinking to dose the technology. Thank you.
And that's another timely question. I just got back from 30+ days of driving around our, our country, and many of those days were spent backpacking into different wilderness areas. And in the South Dakota, I was stunned to see in the Black Elk Wilderness that they'd already gone through and done some tree management. So much of the down trees were stacked together in different clusters to minimize the impact of a forest fire. Keith, you have a question there, or a
Yeah, I
comment?
just want to get in before we wrap up. I think the first thing I say, and I think I pronounce it correctly, is it multi-mesc? How do I say thank you?
Oh yeah, mulțumesc. Yeah.
There we go. So make sure my pronunciation was okay. I've got maybe two questions, and the first one is just so I know, is this product, process, or technology an improvement on an existing process, or is this something completely new? And then really what I was interested in is, just like from a commercial perspective, what barriers are there to entry for competitors? What stops others from just being able to easily do this once they see you get some traction?
Those are two great questions. The pruning technology is, from what we have evaluated and a really deep market research, is that it's currently in development. Some similarities in universities, two universities, though commercially speaking, there is nothing available at the moment. And since we intend on launching a pruning training app to help people understand which branches to cut, because this is going to be the fastest go-to-market segment to teach, for example, laborers to prune trees, whether it's fruit trees or forest trees, or it's a different situation, of course, though. The barriers here are that for the scion, we would have a patented recipe for the composition of the actual pods. And for the robotics, it would be basically a license for the assembly line, so to speak, because I'm trying to show the bigger picture of the containers that we're going to deploy. They're going to be doing this work. Of course, it's going to happen gradually, and in the end, foreseeable end, we want to have, for example, soil sampling done autonomously. That is something that we've identified throughout all the conversations we've had with farmers and land stewards, that they need soil sampling. And of course, in wildfire affected areas, they do need this to see the levels of the soil in the soil. And that is where we are at now. Did I answer both your questions?
I think so. Thank you very much.
Mulțumesc.
Mulțumesc.
So it's we're thinking at 360 degrees for tree and soil management. This can also be very modular. We're trying to do it like in increments of progress, which is step by step to see which one to deploy faster and as efficiently as it can in the moment that we are, because we got founded in January.
Great. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
That's
Likewise.
That's rapid acceleration there. Congratulations. Well, Thea, thank you so much for coming on and speaking to us. I know it's a different time in Romania than it is here on the East Coast. Although Kimberly, I think, went back to bed. So it's good seeing you. I'm going to end this recording here.
Thank you so much.